Welcome to New York Got Game.
Welcome back to another edition of New York Got Game. A lot of interesting things going on in the week of New York basketball. We saw the Knicks and Nets battle each other twice, but we're not going to talk about the local NBA teams this week. We're going to take you to school, take you to campus, and talk about one team here in the New York area that's doing pretty good right now. They're also nationally ranked. We might talk a little bit about the Knicks and just where they are at this point in the season, but the focus is going to be on college basketball for this episode, so let's get right to it. All right, St. John's Red Storm, they're off to a perfect 4-0 start. They're also a top 25 team in the country, and they also have a big non-conference tournament coming up later this month. Great time to talk about the Johnnies here on New York Got Game, and joining me to do that is the great St. John's reporter for the New York Post, the one and only, my guy, Zach Braziller. Zach, what's going on, man?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. St. John's is looking good.
Hey, good day at the Garden.
Yeah, it was a good day at the Garden today. They just beat New Mexico. They're off to a 4-0 start on Sunday. So when you look at all this, Zach, how has Rick Pitino's leadership been reflected in this team's 4-0 start thus far?
You know, a big thing has been kind of learning from last year. They weren't really ready for their first significant game. They played Michigan at the Garden. They only had one tune-up. And they got beaten by a Michigan team that ended up as one of the more disappointing teams in the country. Go to the Charleston Classic, went 2-1, but really didn't play well. And this is a team that really didn't hit its stride till late. And so he did some things differently this summer. He worked more on offensive and defensive structure and kind of how they want to play, and less on really individual skill sets. He felt like it was important to get this team ready early because they have a tough schedule. They go to the Bahamas now. They get Baylor, maybe for Virginia or Tennessee, Georgia. So he said, look, he said today, the day you stop learning as a coach is the day you should retire. And he's clearly still learning. He kind of regrets some things he did last year in terms of, and kind of faults himself for a little bit of the slow start. And look, there's no doubt this team was ready today. They were not ready a year ago at this time. And look, 4-0, number 22 team in the country. They were impressive today, and now they get some real big tests coming up.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to the big test that's coming up for St. John's. You just mentioned it's a team ranked 22 in the AP Top 25 for the first time in 5 years. What does this ranking, just them being in the top 25, what does that mean for this program and its trajectory going forward?
Look, in the long run, in terms of where you're going to end up in March, it's not, to me, important, but it's great for optics. It's great for interest. They had over 12,000 there today, which a Sunday at noon on a football Sunday is decent. I thought it was a solid showing. You obviously want to get bigger crowds as you move forward here, but I thought it was a good first showing. But it's about optics. Fans care about the ranking. You get the number next to your name, and it kind of adds some buzz, adds some hype. Look, we're so early. It's only a few weeks in. Nobody really knows the best top 25 teams in the country, but I do think it's important. We talk about raising money for NIL. We talk about recruiting. Being able to say you're a top 25 team does matter, in terms of the overall just vision and overall just kind of aura of your program.
Yeah, no, it does matter. It is nice to see that number next year. The fans like that for sure. But, Zach, when you look at this team through the first 4 games, what's been the biggest surprise? Is there a surprise for you about this team, how they've played, how they've looked through these first 4 games?
I think it's the athleticism and the defense. They're a much more athletic team than they were last year. They're a team that's already defending much better than it did at this time last year. Some of the weaknesses we thought coming in, shooting the three, maybe depth, have kind of shown. They really didn't play a lot of guys today. The three-point shooting wasn't great. It's kind of been off and on so far this season. But just the way they can defend already. And look, they're going to get better defensively, but they're already a team that can really guard you. They have positional versatility. They have guys who could guard 3 or 4 different positions. They haven't really even pressed a ton yet, and that's going to be something they're going to do as well. When you look at guys like Kadari Richmond, R.J. Lewis, Aaron Scott, Simeon Wilcher, they have guys that can guard the 2, the 3, the 4, and that's just such a bonus when you're switching and you're dealing with pick and rolls, and that's something they kind of lacked at times last year.
Yeah, they look really good defensively thus far early in the season. We know it's just 4 games, small sample size, but they're looking really good. Now, this is the part we're talking about with the team. The team is heading into the Bahamas Championship. That is a mouthful, folks. That's happening later this week. You will be there.
I will. Can't wait.
I'm a little bit jealous I'm not going with you down to the Bahamas. We might see Rick Pitino in a white suit or probably something a lot more comfortable. But seriously, with this tournament, how significant is this tournament for the St. John season right now?
It's big. Look, counting today, New Mexico made the tournament last year. I think they're going to be another tournament team this year. So I kind of looked at it, New Mexico as the start. They had 8 days. They play 4 very good teams. You have New Mexico, then they get Baylor. Baylor followed by either number 11 Tennessee or Virginia, and then Georgia, who's got one of the best freshmen in the country. They have a very good team. I think they're another team that can make the tournament. So really, I looked at these kind of 4 games in 8 days stretch of a chance to kind of really show what they are. And they started out really well today. Look, beat a New Mexico team by 14. I get it. St. John's was at home. New Mexico's flying across the country. But New Mexico's is a team that people like a lot. They were picked second in the Mountain West, and St. John's took care of business. Now, Baylor's, it's obviously a really important game. You're playing a team, it's a chance for a kind of a statement victory. And the other thing is, if you beat Baylor, you likely get Tennessee. It's a huge difference than playing Virginia when you look at the overall strength of schedule and kind of getting a crack at an elite team. So yeah, I mean, it's significant. It's important. Simeon Wilcher said the other day, this 8 days are kind of going to set the tone for their season, and they're off to a good start here.
That's a really big statement right there about what this stretch can do for their season. So we know this. Look, this stretch is going to be tough for competition, right, ahead in this tournament. What challenges do you see them facing in the Bahamas where they will face this tougher competition?
Look, Baylor's really good. They got VJ Edgecombe. He's a projected one-and-done top 5.
You picked them to win. You picked them to win it all, right?
I did.
You did. Okay, I remember
look,
that.
They started a little shaky. They got beat up by Gonzaga. They came back and they beat Arkansas. I think Baylor's really good. They have a really good team. And Tennessee is really physical. Tennessee is terrific as well. And I think Georgia's very good too. Look, St. John's plays its game and they play like they did today. I think they can play with anyone in the country. They're a team that's going to be elite defensively. They can really rebound. They can score in the lanes. The shooting is a little bit of a question mark. Look, all 5 starters today scored in double figures. Davon Smith was terrific. Kadari Richmond was terrific. R.J. Lewis, 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. And 7 assists really stood out to me because he was a guy last year that was always looking for his shot. And today, when the doubles came and when help came, he found the open guys. And Rick Pitino's been saying he thinks RJ could be a first-round pick down the road. And he's 6'7", he's super athletic, he really rebounds, the shot is improving. If RJ Lewis can play like he did today, he's going to be incredibly tough to deal with.
Yeah, and that's what I want to get to. I want to get to some of the players individually here on St. John's with Zach here. Now, since coming over in the transfer portal, Kadari Richmond, he's been called the team's most important player. What does he need to do to elevate his game and play even better as we go further along in the season?
Before today, the 2 most recent games, Quinnipiac and Wagner, he only took 7 shots. He wasn't really aggressive. I thought the end of the Wagner game, he started to pick it up with his aggression. Today, I thought was better. He had 14 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, kind of did a little bit of everything. Turnovers were an issue with him. It was weird. A lot of turnovers today. St. John's had 16. A lot of them were unforced. But he's a guy that can do a little bit of everything. He's a 6'6" guard. He's a really good rebounder for his size. He really passes the ball well. He's got a terrific mid-range game. The three-point shot is something they're working on him with. He's never really been a very good shooter, and that's really the only reason he's not in the NBA. If he was more of a shooter, if he could shoot the 3 a little more, he would be an NBA player right now. And that's one thing they're really trying to work with him on. He's got a hitch on that shot they're trying to get rid of. But he's a guy that can do a little bit of everything. Look, we saw last year he led Seton Hall to a surprising 4th place finish in the Big East. And really, he's never played with this much talent before in his career. He's got another point guard with Davon Smith. You have Lewis. You have Wilcher. You have Aaron Scott. You have Zuhair Efor. You have Brady Dunlap. So there's a lot of talent here where they don't need him to get 20 a game, but it's important for him to kind of impose his will on the game. And I thought he really did that, especially late. New Mexico got it within 4. Then St. John's answered with a 9-2 run. Kadari hit a jumper. He set up a teammate for a layup. Had another a defensive play. You're seeing it. He's just got to be a little more consistent in terms of being aggressive.
Right.
Just because, look, there are it's with a team, especially on the offensive end, where you have 2 new point guards basically. So there's a feeling out process, and I think you're seeing that, and they're getting more comfortable. Clearly, the defense is ahead of the offense right now, but I thought today was a very good step with that offense.
It's going to be very interesting to see if Kadari Richmond is able to be more aggressive as we move through the season. Now, Zach, you recently wrote about freshman Jaden Glover and how he's made an impact on this team early on. What do you make of his adjustment that you've seen to the college game? What have you made of what you've seen from him thus far?
Look, he's adjusting to kind of, probably the first time in his life, not really playing a ton. You know, and Simeon Wilcher has kind of been in his year, and Wilcher went through this last year. He was a big-time recruit about not playing a lot and, you know, learning by watching. And, you know, I think Jaden Glover is going to have a role in this team. I do. It's just probably not going to happen quite as fast as he wants, but he's a guy he's a super athlete. He can defend. He can shoot the three, which is something they need more of. So I do think he's going to have a role in this team as they build the bench out, but it just might not happen as fast as he wants. And, you know, in this day and age, you know, that's why I think Wilcher is so unique, and St. John's fans are so high on him. He didn't have a big game today. Minutes were down, but he's really kind of come on early in this year. And, you know, he's shown that sometimes patience is worth it.
You know, everybody doesn't have patience, especially with some New York fans. You know that doesn't happen.
And, you know, that I agree. But I think that's one thing that's really impressed me about Wilcher is his patience. You know, last year when he wasn't playing, you would always see him on the bench, and Pitinos said he was one of the best teammates he's ever seen. And that's a really valuable trait, you know. We all know everyone wants to be the hero and score the points, but, you know, a team to be successful, there's a harmony that has to exist. And look, I think Wilcher is going to have a big role in this team, and I think Glover is going to have a role. It's just going to take some time.
It's going to take some time, some patience for the young man, and that is a tough thing to adjust when you've been playing a lot to now coming in as a freshman and not playing as much. Now, we talked about this guy before when you were up here, Zuhair Efor. High energy presence in the second half of these games thus far. We've seen that. Do you see him carving out a bigger role in this rotation with the Johnnies?
Hey, look, he was good today. He had 13 points, 10 rebounds, few blocks, few assists. By far his best game of the early season. It's an adjustment period for him because he was at Kansas freshman year, didn't really play much. Comes here last year, he's Joel Soriano's backup. And now he's being asked to kind of be a big part of this team. And first few games were a struggle. The third game, they even brought him off the bench. Then today he's back being, I thought he finished the Wagner game well, hit a three, had a dunk. And now today was more kind of the guy we saw a lot of last year. He was getting a ton of offensive rebounds. He's blocking shots. He's making his free throws. I thought today, especially, you know, New Mexico has a big man, Nelly Jr. Joseph, who's very good. And I thought Zuby matched him, if not outplayed him. And I think today was a big step for him confidence-wise to play as well as he did against a good big man.
Yeah, because when he has that energy, he looks really good. You can see what he can bring to this St. John's team. Now, Zach, in your eyes, and again, 4 games, folks, which player has been, I guess you'd say, the team's unsung hero through the first 4 games? You're looking at who's been maybe the unsung hero, or if you want to call it MVP of this team through the first 4 games.
If we're going unsung hero, I think it's easy. It's Aaron Scott.
Aaron Scott
comes from North Texas. He's a guy who can guard basically every position on the floor. He dives on the floor. He really defends. He can hit the three. He hit the biggest shot of the game today. New Mexico had it down to 4. He hits a 3 off a scramble. He was a team high plus 18 in 33 minutes. He's a guy who just makes winning plays. Look, he's not going to be the star of this team. He's not going to take the most shots, but he's a guy that, you know, a 3-and-D guy that's going to defend, you know, 1 through 4, who's going to, you know, I think they want to see him more aggressive to kind of maybe attack the basket a little more and not just settle for as many threes. But I think he kind of is already their glue guy. And we all know every team needs that. And he's really just been impressive with his selfless attitude and just how much he wants to win. And he's really shown it. And, you know, the second game of the year, Quinnipiac, he barely played. He was sick. And that first half, they really struggled. And I thought they really missed him. And they've been, to me, a much better defensive team when he's out there.
Yeah, Aaron Scott having an impact thus far early on in the season for the Johnnies. Last thing for me on the Johnnies is that when you look at their strong start and the upcoming challenging games they have coming up, what does St. John's need to do in order to solidify their standing as a top 25 team throughout this non-conference schedule?
You know, I look at this as a trip where you would like to go 2-1. You know, obviously you would love to get the Baylor game and take your shot at Tennessee, and then you finish up with Georgia. If you ever lost the Baylor game, you really want to win the next 2. With Virginia, you would probably like play Virginia and then Georgia. I think you want to have a winning trip. 3-0 would be amazing, but I think that's asking a lot. I think 2-1 would be a really good trip, and it's just continue to build. You know, continue to make progress on offense, continue to play the defense you're playing. I would expect Pitino to play more of the bench in the Bahamas. You obviously have 3 games in 4 days. It's a little different than playing once every 4 or 5 days. So I think that's key too. The starters played real heavy minutes. Zuby Efor played 35 minutes. It's not something they want to keep doing. But yeah, I think you want to have a winning trip. We always, you know, kind of like baseball when you want to win series, right?
Right.
So now they got 3 tough games. You want to win 2. If you win 3, that'd be fantastic. They ever won 3 games on this trip, they might be ranked in the top 10 after that. But I think you want to just build on what you've done so far, and you want to try to get 2 wins here.
There you go. Win 2 out of 3. I think St. John's fans will be happy about that. Zach is actually going to be doing work in the Bahamas. He will be working in the Bahamas. Unfortunately. Even though he'll be enjoying all that nice weather down there, hopefully. Before we let you out of here, because we talked some St. John's, I also got to talk to you about the Knicks, because I was with you the other night. We were at the Garden. We were sitting next to each other when Knicks had that thrilling come back. They had to come back because they blew a 21-point lead to the Nets, and they come back. As we're recording this, they are going to play the Nets tonight, again, back-to-back. What are your thoughts on this Knicks team thus far? As we're recording, it's 6-6, 500. It's been an uneven start through 12 games. What's your thoughts on this Knicks squad so far?
I think they're looking for their identity. I do. I think they kind of lost some of that, obviously, when losing Randall and DiVincenzo and Hartenstein. So I think they're looking for their identity, which isn't necessarily a surprise. They have a new team, basically. It's a very new team. And if you look at all the Knicks teams under Thibodeau, they've started slow.
Yeah.
I mean, and not just talking about 20 games. Like, they started through like 30, 35 games. I remember at this time last year, this time the year before, people were like, what's wrong with the Knicks? Why aren't they playing better? And I think it's going to take time. I do think this team, this roster, when they get healthy, has a higher ceiling than if they would have just run everything back. I loved what I've seen from Towns. I know McBride's missing a few games here, but I think McBride's going to be a key part of this bench. Obviously, getting Achua back is going to help a ton. Mitchell Robinson, you would hope, is back in January, and that'll obviously help a lot too. I think Bridges is kind of trying to find his niche here. I think Anunoby has probably been their MVP. He's been terrific.
Yeah.
Fans don't want to hear it. They want to be 12-0 now. But it's a very new team with a lot of new pieces, and the defense isn't going to be this bad. They have too many good defensive players, especially when Robinson comes back, for them to remain where they are defensively. To me, they're kind of searching for who they are, and that's really not a surprise when you're talking about a team that's got so many new key players.
Yeah, 3 new players in the starting lineup. I'm with you. I'm not surprised where the Knicks are. I wasn't surprised.
Tough early schedule, too. Let's not forget that.
That's another thing. 7 out of their first 10 games were against playoff teams from last year. It didn't shock me they started off 5-5 through 10, Zach. It didn't shock me that they're 6-6 through 12. Now, do you like the way they lost some of these games? No. I understand that. You might have some concern. So when I hear that from you, your concern level is pretty low, if even with the Knicks.
Yeah, I want to see them kind of figure out who they are, because I don't think you watch these games and I don't think they kind of know who they are yet. They have some good defensive players. They have some good offensive players. They're obviously missing, some really key guys for that bench, and that's taken a toll. I think if you have some of those guys, you're not going to see those fourth quarter collapses. There's just so much on the starters' plate, whether it's they're logging the minutes or they're just playing stressful minutes. You always hear that in baseball, like stressful pitches on a pitcher, right?
Right.
So, and I think that's kind of, the starters have been playing a lot of stressful minutes. They haven't had a lot of these one-sided games where unlike the last year or so, where they had a ton of those like kind of cakewalk games. And, I know, like I said, people don't want to hear it, but I do think Precious comeback is going to be a big thing. I'd like to see Kolek play a little more. I'd like to see Porty play a little more. He's got to push this bench out, kind of like what I talked about St. John's, where now in college a little different. In college, you're playing twice a week. You can get away with riding your starters heavy, especially when you don't have game a night or the next night. The NBA, like Thibodeau says, the games keep coming, and I think that's been an early factor, that not having some of these bench pieces has kind of put an extra onus on their starters.
I agree with that. That was a concern. We talked about it here on the show last week, that was some concern about just, are these starters playing too many minutes? Should Thibodeau stretch the bench out a little bit
Problem
more?
is, to say player playing 20 minutes, problem is they're short in that bench.
Right.
So, who is
he going to play?
Who do you want to play? I know fans are in love with Tyler Kolek, but you want to play Tyler Kolek 20 minutes?
Well,
now? He's not quite ready for that.
We saw the other night, we saw Ariel Purdy get 30 minutes, right?
Well, they had to with Towns out.
They had to, right, with Towns out. You saw Pacome Dottie, I think he played about 12. You saw Tyler Kolek get, I think it was 7 minutes in that game. Yeah. And he wasn't that great in that game. Not saying that he shouldn't play. Not the point that I'm making here, folks, but what I'm saying is it's going to be matchup dependent. It's going to be dependent on who they have available, who they don't have available. But I would like to see Tibbs stretch it out just a bit more.
This bench will look so different when you have a healthy McBride, healthy Precious, Mitchell Robinson, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. That's a big difference. And let's not forget Shaman. Shaman was going to be a part of that bench.
Another good point.
And he gets hurt, and he's still obviously he's with the G League team. He's rehabbing, so they're going to make moves in the deadline. They're going to get the depth is going to improve. And I do think when you get that depth improved, then you kind of maybe can figure out a little bit of who you are. I don't think it's a shock that I understand Brunson's back, I understand Hart, but you have so many new pieces. It's going to take time for them to kind of figure out who they are.
I agree. I think there's a segment of the fan base that thinks, okay, you just put these guys
Here's
together.
the other thing. Would you rather be the Bucks or the Sixers?
Trust me, you would not want to be that if you're in, right. It could be, and people are complaining about a 6-6 start, and you have the Bucks and the Sixers who.
So it could be a lot worse where you're several games behind the teams that you're really going to be battling for seeding. I understand the Cavs are off to an incredible start, but I think it definitely helps ease the burden that two teams you thought you were competing with are absolute disasters right now.
Yeah, I think from what I hear you say, it's going to be all right. It's going to be.
It might be. You could always be the Jets, so right.
Well, we're not going to go through that. You've already given up. You've tuned out.
Oh, I enjoyed my Sunday so much without watching the Jets today.
See, this is what I like right here, and I hope that people take notice. Zach realized a certain team was bringing him stress, and he just said no more.
I got to get Rick Pitinos to just schedule Sunday afternoon games for the rest of the year.
So you don't have to watch the Jets.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, Coach Pitino, get on that. So Zach can. It's for his mental health, right? Covers the St. John's, doesn't have to watch the Jets. Better for his mental health. I think a lot of Jets fans out there would agree with you.
Be a lot happier, man.
Yeah, and you're right. It could be worse. So Knicks fans, calm down out there. If you're stressed, watch some St. John's basketball. They're 4-0.
Just don't watch the Jets.
That could be good. Maybe St. John's comes back from this trip 3-0, and New York basketball's feeling good.
Well, they go 3-0, man. Their fans will be playing in the Final Four.
Oh, see, that's when people go too far the other way. That's what happens, Zach. That is my guy, Zach Brazilla does a great job covering the St. John's Red Storm for the New York Post. Also got to talk some Knicks with him. Zach, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining me on New York Game.
I love it. My pleasure.
All right, just stay away from the Jets, okay?
Oh, God.
It's going to be an interesting week of basketball moving forward. We'll see how St. John's does down in the Bahamas. That'll be something to keep an eye on. And also, keep your eye on the Knicks this week because they have a very interesting schedule with what they can do. They host the Wizards at home on Monday. Then they start a West Coast trip. They'll be at Phoenix and at Utah to close out this week. So how do the Knicks build upon what we've seen recently, and can they continue that out on the West Coast? Something to keep an eye on. Special thanks to my guest this week, Zach Brazilla, doing a great job covering the Johnnies there. As always, got to thank the people that make this show possible. My editor, Catherine Cooper, my producer, Nick Federico, and director, Zachary Taub. For all of them, I'm Dexter Henry, signing off for New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.